You know those courtroom dramas that keep you on the edge of your seat, right? Well, imagine one playing out, but not in some fictional TV show. This one's in the U.S. Supreme Court. And it's real. It's been going on for almost 20 years and reached kind of a turning point today.
It really has.
At the center of it all is this guy, Tahawwur Rana. He's 64 years old, and his name is tied to something truly horrific. But this isn't some movie, it's a deep dive into a quest for justice that has spanned 17 years.
17 years, that's right. And it really underscores the sheer, dedication to seeing this thing through. It all goes back to November 26, 2008, Mumbai, a city just full of life. That day, it was hit by a 60-hour terror attack. Just brutal.
I remember that.
166 people died. 6 of those were Americans. After the attacks, India made it clear. Everyone responsible would be held accountable.
So that leads us to Rana. On paper, he's a businessman, a physician, even an immigration consultant. Doesn't exactly scream terrorist, right?
Hey, not at all.
Which is what makes this whole thing so disturbing.
Yeah.
But the link between Rana and those attacks is his connection to David Coleman Headley. Remember that name? He's serving 35 years right now for his role in the Mumbai attacks.
Yeah. And what's interesting is how Headley was operating in Mumbai before the attacks actually happened. He wasn't just, there as a tourist. He was scouting locations, identifying targets very methodically. That's where Rana comes in.
So they're saying Rana's immigration business wasn't just a business, it was a cover for Headley, giving him the ability to move around and gather information that, tragically, made those attacks possible.
Right. And it just makes you think how easily something ordinary can be used for something so horrific.
Okay, so let's talk about the latest development here. Rana has been fighting extradition to India from a detention center in Los Angeles. His legal team has been, well, they've been trying everything. Their last move was something called an emergency application for stay pending litigation of petition for writ of habeas corpus.
A mouthful.
It was a final attempt to get the Supreme Court to block his extradition while they pursue other legal options.
This raises the question, why fight so hard against extradition? Well, Rana's lawyers argued that he'd face a huge risk of torture if he was sent to India. They pointed to his background, Muslim Pakistani, and the serious charges against him. They also said that he's in really bad health, heart problems, Parkinson's disease, and a possible cancer diagnosis.
So basically they're saying sending him to India would be a death sentence. Too sick to survive the trip and the trial. It is a compelling argument, you have to admit. Makes you think about the human cost of all this.
Right. But it's important to remember, this isn't the first time Rana's been in court over these events.
Yeah, good point.
Back in 2011, he was actually convicted here in the U.S. for providing support to Lashkar-e-Taiba. That's the group behind the Mumbai attacks. He was also convicted for his part in a different plot, this one targeting a newspaper in Denmark. He got 14 years in prison for those convictions.
But, and this is crucial, he was acquitted of charges directly related to the Mumbai attacks.
Exactly. So you've got this sort of contradiction. Convicted for supporting the group that carried out the attacks, but found not guilty of direct involvement in Mumbai. And Rana's lawyers have used that acquittal in their fight against extradition.
But India has a different perspective, right?
They do. They've always maintained he played a role in the attacks.
Yeah, even during that U.S. trial, India's National Investigation Agency, their main federal agency for fighting terror, had already filed charges against Rana. They see him as a key conspirator in the Mumbai attacks. And for India, the case against him goes beyond what was addressed in the U.S. They've been pushing for his extradition since 2019, believing they have enough evidence to prove his involvement.
And all this legal back and forth has been intense. The U.S. government under the Biden administration eventually approved the extradition request in 2023. Then Rana's team started with all the appeals, leading up to this last attempt with the Supreme Court. He even argued that being tried in India would violate the concept of double jeopardy since he was already tried in the U.S. Right, but the U.S. government's counter-argument is interesting. They said the charges India wants to bring against Rana include things like forgery, which weren't part of the U.S. trial. So legally, it's not double jeopardy because it wouldn't be for the exact same offenses.
It's like a high-stakes chess game, and this recent denial by the Supreme Court, a simple application denied, feels like checkmate.
It does.
Yeah.
And, there were some pretty strong statements from important political figures about this case.
Right, like back in February 2025.
Yeah. Then President Trump, standing with Indian Prime Minister Modi, said Rana would be sent back to India to face justice. He even called him very evil. That kind of statement from both governments shows how much this case matters. And then, of course, you had Secretary of State Rubio, who signed off on the surrender.
So, with all the legal options gone, what happens now? Sounds like India has been ready for this for a while.
Absolutely. The NIA is getting things set up to bring Rana to Delhi. There's been talk in the Indian press about maybe using a chartered flight, and they'll likely take him to Tahar jail in Delhi. The Indian government has said it meets international standards with medical care and CCTV monitoring.
They're definitely aware of the attention on Rana's well-being in custody.
For sure.
17 years after the attacks, the idea of another key figure facing trial in India is becoming a reality. It has to bring some sense of closure, even if it's been a long time coming, for the victims, their families, and the people of India.
It's a huge moment. This extradition sends a clear message about the power of international law when it comes to terrorism. It shows the commitment to pursuing justice, no matter how far or how long it takes.
It really makes you think. This guy, on the surface, he seemed ordinary, professional, but now he's accused of being a key part in one of the most horrific terrorist attacks in recent history. His fight against extradition shows how complicated international justice can be, but it also shows how far people will go to avoid being held accountable for something this serious.
It does make you think. What does Rana's story, his legal battles, tell us about the global fight against terrorism today? What does it mean when someone who seems so normal is accused of playing such a big role in such extreme violence? It's something to think about as this legal chapter ends and a new one, probably just as intense, begins in a courtroom in India.
Definitely a lot to consider.
A lot to consider.